of comedy you do just to kind of loosen up and get in the moment. Did you find it hard? Little bit. Not terrible. Gloria, you didn't find it hard because you stole what she said. That made it easy, but I'm sure you could do it either way. So it's a little exercise to kind of, in a soft way, in a fun way, reclaim the fact that we are all creators and creatives and makers. So within that short, what was that, 2 minutes? I'm out of breath. That shows you how bad a shape I'm in. I just walked up and back and I'm like, whew. We created a story about a man who lived under a log, right? We never got to explore that part. Is anyone else curious about why he lives under a log? Yeah, me too. And he went to the pier and he started to fish, but what happened? That they weren't biting. Okay, so before we started that, we didn't have this story of a man living under a log or a pier or the fish who were not biting. We had a void, we had nothingness. And then together, we started a story. And from there, who knows where that story might go? If we continued that exercise, he might fall in the water, right? The fish might start biting. Maybe he catches something that's a treasure. Or, who knows? Or somebody walks up and talks, the story was just getting good. And we still got to find out why he lives under a log. But you are creative. Together, we are creative. And yet, many of us don't define ourselves that way. When we look in the mirror, we don't look at that person and say, you are a maker. You are creative. And we want to change that by the end of the next 12 to 15 minutes. So Don, would you please read Genesis for us, chapter 1, 26, 27.
Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humans in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them.
So don't get distracted by the dominion talk and all of that. That's another sermon down the road, of course. But notice that the very first description we have of God is of creator. At the very core of our understanding of God, the very center of God's nature, God is creating. And then we are created in the image of a creating God. That means that every single one of us, even those folks who, in their own narrative, in their own understanding of themselves, would say, I am not a creative person. I am a spreadsheet person. I am somebody who does a task that's laid before me kind of person. Is there anyone here who maybe doesn't define as a creative soul? I bet. Shirley? Yeah. You're wrong. Most of us have dabbled with creativity. When we're in school, like little ones, they put the paints and paper in front of everybody, right? I'm doing a lot of pacing today. I'll try to be still. And then my brain stops. We know this. But everybody has the creative instinct and the creative capacity. And even folks who don't feel like they're creative, it just comes out differently. I wish Wayne was here and Rachel's in Japan right now, but our spreadsheet folks are creative. It's just that what they're creating isn't a painting. It might be a budget. It might be a way forward when we're looking for funding for something important. That's creation, right? What about somebody who doesn't feel creative, but their gift, they think, is to clean? Who comes in and cleans the sanctuary? Aren't they creating something as well? They're creating a space where people can come in and experience hospitality? Like the understanding we have of who is a creative, who is a maker is far too narrow, because everybody is. And we have this beautiful story of Bezalel. Bezalel? How should we say it confidently so that nobody knows if we're saying it incorrectly? How did you say it? Buzz? Call him Buzz. Let's call him Buzz, because nobody quite knows how to say that. Does anyone remember this part of Scripture? Right. Isn't it amazing that we have this Buzz? Right. And you've been in church a long time. She just had a birthday. But we have this important person who God blessed, the Spirit of God flowed into for a specific task, the same Spirit that entered Moses. God said, "Let my people go free." The same Spirit that went into Aaron when Moses said, "I have a stutter and I can't speak. I need somebody to speak words of liberation." That same Spirit went into Buzz when God needed a sanctuary built. Don, the next reading, please.
This one's from the 31st chapter of Exodus, verses 1 through 5. The Lord spoke to Moses, "See, I have called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, son of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with a divine spirit, with ability, intelligence, and knowledge, and every kind of skill, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, to work in every kind of craft."
If we were to go back to Aramaic, to the language this was written in, when they talk about the Spirit of God, they talk about it in terms of breath. And the word is ruah. Many of you have heard that before. R-U-H-A-U-H, or something like that. R-U-A-C-H, something in there. And it's the same Spirit, same word that hovered over the waters at the beginning of the act of creation. That same breath is what blew into Adam and Eve as they came to life. The first people their lungs were filled. They were called into being by the creative breath, the creative wind. Moses and Aaron, called to their task, the same wind blew in, and with Bezalel, with Buzz. And I think it's really important to notice that there's no distinction here in the very first chapter of the Bible between spiritual gifts and practical, ordinary, quote unquote, ordinary gifts of working with the hands. And I think that's beautiful. We often hear somebody who's singing or preaching a good sermon. You'll get one of those one Sunday, I promise. We see folks who do things with their voices or their presence or the words they write, and we say that's a spiritual gift. But how often do we look at somebody who took a piece of technology and got it working again and say, that is a gift from God in the same way? But Genesis tells us that it absolutely is. And that means that this room, however you defined yourself previously, this room is full of Bezalels. Whether you are playing the flute or writing songs or doing spreadsheets or fixing air conditioning systems, which in the South raises you just below Jesus in stature. If you can come into a house that's sweltering and get that air conditioning running, you are way up there. And notice, if you think about it, even if you don't paint every day or write novels all the time, you have been making something every day of your life. Every day. You have made careers. You have shaped curriculums. You have made families. You have made friends. You have made food. All of these things are the actions of a maker. And let's look at that more closely. That power, because it actually is a power. It's not just a gift. That each person has the capacity, not just the capacity actually, each one of us is a maker, a creator in every moment. Think about that. So if Mitzi stood up in this exact instant and walked up here and punched me in the nose, what kind of moment would she just have made besides hilarious? For me, not a great one. My nose is already crooked for being broken too many times. But for you, she would have made probably a fairly traumatic moment too. Confusing, upsetting, right? For you too, right? You'd be like, why am I doing this? Now, what if Mitzi walked up here and laid her hands on my head and said, may God bless you richly with peace and joy? What kind of moment would she have just made then? Beautiful. That's right. It's the same creative act, right? Taking something in this moment that is empty and doing something with it. Punch in the nose or a blessing. This is true for everybody all the time. The power that builds sanctuaries, that built this church, the creative will, also can build weapons or fortresses that keep people out. The same creative spirit in humans that can write symphonies or, balance budgets that are complex, or create legislation that helps those who are disenfranchised and disempowered. That same creative capacity can also spin out terrible propaganda, as we are learning, that separates people and causes people to fall into us versus them camps. It's never been a question of if we create. It has only ever been a question of what we create. And that's hugely important. What are we creating as a country? What kind of world are we creating? As a church, what are we creating? Is it a punch in the nose or is it a blessing? And to whom? As individuals, as each one of us. From the moment you woke up today till this exact moment, what did you create? Did anyone stop and get gas or go to the store or interact with somebody? No? Did anyone speak to anybody here? Imagine most of you did. Here, right here, in here. What kind of moment did you create when you spoke to that person? A positive one or a negative one? Pardon? Hopefully a positive one, that's right. That's right. But in every moment, goes from creativity like, ooh, this is kind of fun, to like, oh man, there's responsibility here. That's right. There is. What is it? What's the Spider-Man quote? Somebody help me. To those who have been given great power comes great responsibility. Thank you. Nice that our congregation has some youth in it. And the best part is, no matter how old you get, you will always be in the youth group of the church. You'll be 60, and everyone will be like, oh, I remember when I was 60. People still do it to me all the time. That's right. That's right. So we've been, and saying we're celebrating Juneteenth is not the right phrase. Recognizing Juneteenth. Let's look at it clearly. Slavery as a system was a created thing, right? Somebody designed it, a group of people designed it. Piece by piece, thinking they were justified, looking at the bottom line. How do we get somebody to pick this cotton or work this rice paddy that we don't have to pay? Somebody built the economic system, many somebodies, defended it, but it was built, right? But there were people who opposed it, blessedly. And they wrote songs, and they wrote laws, they proposed laws, and theologies were written to try to undo the sin of slavery. And I want to sadly say that there were churchgoers on both sides. In fact, that's the original split in the Methodist Church was over that very issue. In my home church back in Atlanta, that is now condominiums, maybe blessedly so because of this heritage, but on the cornerstone it says MEC, Methodist Episcopal Church South. And the South, that was the ones who were okay with slavery. But there were plenty of good church folks, followers of Jesus, who stood up and said, this is not right. This is not okay. As they claimed their creative capacity, they wanted to bless and to liberate rather than to enslave. I think it's really beautiful that one of the remnants we have of that time and of that struggle are the spirituals that are in our hymnal. And it's always dicey, I will say, when a group of largely Caucasian, not exclusively, but largely Caucasian folks, middle class, sing an African American spiritual. It's always a little like a small piece of me is like, is this okay? But I think it's really important because it helps us remember that that creative spirit that was in our enslaved brothers and sisters was not extinguished. And that something that they created during a time of incredible oppression and hardship lives on to this day and was a part of their own liberation, part of changing the culture and changing the narrative. And then I think about not just the bad people, the sinful people who chose to create an economic system and maintain an economic system that exploited people, that used people. But we had the abolitionists and the writers and the lawmakers who used those same tools of creation for good. It's really interesting. We're sticking with Juneteenth just a little bit longer. So if you go to Texas, and I don't think it's on their license plate, but it's on some of their official literature, it says, the birthplace of Juneteenth. And the reason, the story behind it is that there was a General Gordon Granger in 1865, a couple years after the Emancipation Proclamation, rode into Galveston, Texas, to read the Emancipation Proclamation and say, you are freed. You are not property. You never were. You're made in the image of God, full stop. And Texas, in a very strange way, is like, we're very proud of that. But what they're ignoring is that they were 2 years behind everybody else. Kind of funny and just terribly tragic. But it's important for us to recognize that freedom wasn't granted that day. It was just recognized. And that the making that people had done with laws and all of that was catching up to society. And as we look at Juneteenth, I think it honors the creative work that tried to drive and steer a nation towards truth and grace and liberty and equality. And that creative work came out of lawmakers and singers and seamstresses and legislators and all of that. And we recognize today the importance of everybody continuing that creative work to shape our nation. Next week, we're going to talk about what's being born, what's being birthed in this congregation, in this community, and in our country. But notice now how you look at yourself. You are made in the image of God. Can never be taken away, by the way. You are beloved exactly as you are today. Those of us with growing bellies and wrinkles and arthritis and brains that sometimes don't work well. Some of us who don't know how to handle our grief and loss in certain moments. Those of us who can still find joy in the world. Those of us who are awkward socially. Those of us who want to sing out loud like myself but have a terrible voice. Those of us who just want to sit on the back pew and not be noticed because we're introverts but we feel a call to be here. All of us in the image of God and greatly beloved. And in that image of God, God has already blessed you as a maker. Already. It's not a question of if. And think about it. Think about the creative work you've already been doing. The merging of two congregations is profoundly creative work. The affordable housing project is profoundly creative work. What is set up behind me and all the ministries that we tried to share with you last week, but the sound system went down and you kind of heard about and you kind of didn't, that's already creative work that you're doing. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of what we're going to do with it. Your next conversation, what are you making? Your next decision, what are you making with that? As you go grocery shopping and you see somebody in the aisle, what happens in that moment? We look out at this world, at this country specifically, and we often despair because we feel powerless and we feel like, well, what can we do? What we can do is lean into, and I hate that phrase, lean into. Just claim. Let's not lean into anything. Let's step into it. Let's boldly step forward into that image of creators. We have a new digital coordinator. I got to find a different title for you because I have to pause and think about what your darn title is. Digital Communications Coordinator. It's clunky. Our first act of creation is to find a new job title. Please. Buzz. Let's just call him Buzz. I love it. But that's your new nickname whether or not you want it. But Buzz, Reverend Stephen, has an incredible background, some of you have heard a little bit about this, in making documentaries that you may have seen on PBS already, and is excited and willing to partner with us as we learn how to make short content videos, or even long content videos. Let's step boldly that direction. We got an ally. We got a friend. To take where there was nothing and have something to say and get it out into the world. Let's write a song. Right? Let's try to write a song. Why not? Maybe it becomes a lift every voice and sing. Let's continue to transform this facility. To look at it and say, what can it be? This incredible gift that we have. We can continue our work to create a moral budget so that somebody comes in and they're church shopping, and I actually had this happen once years ago, and they were church shopping and they said, we love it here, but we want to see your budget. And it's not a secret, so I said, okay. And they looked at it, and the church at that time, full of lovely people, but they spent 98% of their budget on a salary in the building. And they were like, we love the people here, but we're looking for a church that is more ministry and mission minded. I said, fair enough. What can we do? The truth is, we can do an awful lot. if we boldly step forward as creators. And so, creating God. We don't ask you to bless us in becoming creators because we already are and we always have been. It's just a question of what we do with that incredible power and responsibility you've given us. So help us to create goodness and grace and peace in all that we do. We ask you to bless this creative work, we pray. Amen. I am losing my voice. I think I've been yelling at the TV watching the World Cup. So we're going to try a new song called Creating God, Your Fingers Trace. I don't think any of us know it that well. The lyrics are lovely, so just follow along, try to sing with the singers. If it doesn't work, then just allow the words to be a meditation for you.
Creating God, your fingers trace the bold desires of farthest space. Let sun and moon